Hi, it's Joe. Welcome to the Quilt Report. Well, today what I'm thinking about is the many ways that I have benefited from African American culture and people. I mean, when I was young, I grew up in a little farm town. I didn't know any black people, but outside of Flint, Michigan. But the radio stations that I listened to on little transistor radios were flooded with Motown music from Detroit. It was all mixed in with all kinds of the popular music going on at that time. One of the first great acts I ever saw was when I was 16. I went to see James Brown, 1968, at the Ballinger Fieldhouse. He was at the height of his powers, blew my mind. I went on to see a lot of other acts that blew my mind. I moved to Miami when I was just out of high school and got a job washing buses. It turned out with Willie Jones on the midnight shift. Willie and I would wash buses for the city of Coral Gables. He showed me letters from his cousin, Sam Lightning Hopkins, which inspired me to study Lightning Hopkins music and then blues music and blues guitar and quite a bit of that. When I moved back to Flint, my friend Chulo, who lives in New York, is one of the world's great bass players. At that time, he was just getting started. He got me a job in his band, Two Steps Higher, where I was the only white musician. And in that band, led by the great Chuck Fair, I learned all kinds of music theory, lessons about how to be a band member, how to play music I'd never even dreamed of being able to play, jazz and R&B stuff that I had no idea how to do. Well, Chuck walked me through it. Sabrina Lamar, Pam Altimer, great musicians and singers in that band, Jasmine Stone. When I took up quilt making, I gravitated early on towards African American styles as I understood them. They were kind of improvisatory. The great African American quilt scholar, Cuesta Benberry, pointed me in different directions and said, well, not all African American quilts are improvisatory. There's lots of different kinds of them. We're just people, she said. Eventually, the quilters of Gee's Bend became famous, came to my studio here in San Francisco, and I went to Gee's Bend to see them, and have been down there several times and made friends with several of them. Over the years, I've had so many friends and associates that have taught me so much. I'm talking about you, Demetra Smith. I'm talking about Florine Smith. I'm talking about some of the names that I've already mentioned. Well, I have benefited from studying African American culture and from knowing black people of many different kinds. And I've never had to, but I'm a tall white guy. I've never had to live any of the issues that my friends and associates had to live, the injustices that are perpetrated all the time. And when I talk about injustices, you know what I mean. From housing, from walking down the street, from just being in the street and being killed by a policeman. That's the kind of injustice I'm talking about. 400 years of injustice in this society. Well, right now, the protests are going on worldwide, sparked by the death of George Floyd, the horrific, shocking death of George Floyd. The protests are going on, and it feels like there's a little crack in the universe that maybe things might be able to change a little bit. I hope they do. I hope they can. But for us who can now start feeling maybe a little optimistic, it's not the time to sit on our laurels, our behinds. It's not the time to rest and say, thank goodness something's happening. Now is the time to push. Now is the time for us to push our politicians, our local governments, our police departments, and our entire society, and to push ourselves for the change that we need. Let's keep pushing. Here I am in one of the whitest industries there could possibly be, the quilt industry. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. This is where I've ended up. But I want us all to look inside ourselves and see what we can do. We need to keep pushing. Thank you, Demetra. Thank you, Chulo. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, my late friend Chuck. Thank you.